I get it. Beyond All Reason is not the easiest game to get into. Not even the easiest RTS to get into. It's a genre notorious for elitism and complexity. Maybe not necessarily in that order, but, you know, one usually ends up with the other. But it really is a little simpler than you think, and also more complicated, but not in ways we're going to describe today. I am going to talk about some of the basic things that I've learned, sometimes difficult things to learn over the last month or so of playing the game that I wish I would have learned on the first day. So, and a lot of these tips came from you, the people. So like, subscribe if you do enjoy, if you learned something, or if you think I missed something, of course, leave a comment. That's where I got some of these from. But we're going to go over 5 basic categories. We'll probably put a bonus one at the end because that's what good YouTubers do. But the first thing first is settings. There's a few of them. The very first thing before everything else, I'm going to be doing grid hotkeys, grid optimized hotkeys. I want to let you in on a secret, not a well-kept secret, but if you go to controls, grid optimized hotkeys, that'll set you there. You can also customize your hotkeys, but I'm not going to get into all of that. That's a little more complicated. You can find more info in the Discord, but you can find a list of the keys here. This is by default. And then, obviously, there's a lot here. So instead of trying to pilot the space shuttle, or at least play Microsoft Flight Simulator, I'm going to go over the basics. But from here on out, I'm going to be assuming you're using grid keys, which doesn't affect too much for basic commands, but it does affect some of the specifics. I've got the virtual keyboard on the screen over to the side. So grid hotkeys under control. Some other game settings. Many of these are preference, but some I think are pretty much necessary or at least highly recommended for a new player. Set target as default. So that allows your right click to essentially be a focused target. Many units can attack while moving, and this will mean if they get in range, they will prioritize that target, whether it's enemy command or something like that. Otherwise, they might end up attacking ground, which is the default, which is not always ideal, as much as I hate the ground as well. When it comes to the interface, working with that grid, we have, this is how you get, let me select a commander here, or any builder. This is how you get this menu, the way it's set up. Beware, some menus have a couple pages, but this is how you get the grid set up, which you can use for building all these things. I find that to be a lot more convenient coming from StarCraft. I think it's highly recommended. And it works with those grid hotkeys in a way that doesn't overlap. Because if you're sitting with normal hotkeys, they will somewhat overlap with some of the grid build keys. Same thing, always show prices. Group icon, radar icon, you can see, let you in on the information. So that way you know what you're looking at. I think it's very important for new players. And another thing, over here, the player list. So a lot of players wondering, how do I see my rank, my open skill score? I'm not going to get too much into detail, but just know, much like StarCraft 2, you have a number for your to use for balancing in lobbies, and a rank icon. The rank icon is kind of like leagues in StarCraft 2. You get a fancier rank icon the higher up you go with your number, but the number is what's used for balancing and all that. You can see how good or bad, and as you play more games, it gets more confident. You can find more info in the Discord. Anyways, I'd like to have pretty much all this info on, but of course the most important is the mascot. Choose your own over here. I won't judge you. I might a little, depending on which one you pick, but don't forget to enable that, of course. And one more thing is icons. Icon scale and distance. Everything else, I think, in many ways is preference, as is icon scale and distance, but I think this is worth pointing out, because a lot of people have mixed feelings about the icons. I personally like having the icons. There's a guide on the website as to what they all mean, but it makes it a lot easier, especially I find, to pick out constructors and such on the field when you're looking at them. So, but just know this option exists, and that's how you switch that up. Also, make sure you look through all the widgets and stuff like that. Some of them are built in. Some of them are things you can update on the website. But I think that covers most of our basic settings. The grid keys, the player list stuff. You can enable DPS counts and defense ranges, but these are all user preference. I'd mess around with them a bit. So, all right, now that we've finally made it out of the menus, what's next? Hotkeys and commands, of which there are, well, you know, several. First things first, almost every command in the game, pretty much every command in the game, not only can be issued to a certain area, but it can be issued to an actual area. The most useful and basic one of this is metal extractors. You can either use Control-Z or just double tap the command. You'll see that little icon. And now your, whatever it is, in this case, the Twitcher Combat Engineer, one of my favorite units. I'm a Twitcher myself most days. Make sure to check out the stream. We'll go around and shift Q through, ideally closest where you started. But there are other uses for this. Whether it's repairing in a certain area, attacking. Of course, there are no targets. It will prioritize. You can do like a drag select to prioritize maybe a certain amount of targets. But there's a whole lot of uses, and almost everything can be dragged out like that. A big one is actually reclaim. Reclaim is something that becomes one of the most relevant parts of the game. Both from the map, many maps have the ability to reclaim natural resources, which is a big part of early game builds, or reclaiming either your own units and buildings, which is a big part of getting metal, or even more relevant, wrecks on the ground. Fun fact, the reason why a lot of players will self-destruct their commander in team games is because it's worth 2,000 metal. And that's also why it's very important not to lose your commander where your opponents can reclaim it, as of course, that is a huge amount of metal to lose in the early game. So reclaim is a big part of supplementing your income and controlling fights alongside that big area drag. It should be by default on your screen. You can find exactly how much and in what area. And this brings us to the repeat command. The repeat command works side by side with reclaim and movement. You can repeat. Now, many of you probably already learned. You can repeat the build. T by default is the key. Say you want to build, I don't know, some grunts. That's a common one. Just repeat. It'll build a grunt. And then just keep doing that command. That's simple enough. Also, we're just going to jam this in here. What if I want, say, a constructor? I'm going to hold the Alt key. Just build one constructor. It'll put it next in the queue. But it won't add it to the repeat command. So you can just use that to smash a unit in the queue. A lot of the times constructors are the main version. Just keep them going there. And of course, you don't have to. You can essentially issue any command. And also, very key, let's build something larger here. You can issue commands to a unit as it's building as well. So say I wanted to start an advanced fusion reactor. Pretty optimistic, but I could do that. And you can shift Q it. Speaking of shift Q as well, that works with the repeat command. So you want to move, you're getting hit by artillery. Say, for some reason, this guy is, any moment now, please. Firing on this side. Well, you want to move out of that artillery. So we're going to add the repeat command and then hold 2 shift clicks. As you see here, got the AI over there just to make things more interesting. So now they can just repeat between all of them. You also got the patrol command, which is by H on grid. But another fun use, this is a little advanced, but just to show you how many options there are with the repeat command, we're going to set these guys on repair. The combat engineer can build fiend assault bots, which are pretty popular. I'm going to set it on repeat. And even if you don't have a bot lab, well, guess what? You do got a Twitcher. So the repeat command has a lot of uses. Don't be afraid to try it out. It's one of the most useful things that you might not be used to. I just used a stop command to stop everyone there. So, say you want to select all of a certain type. All those mammoth tanks. The Q key is select all of type. If you want to... or maybe all your grunts. Oh, that's a lot of grunts. Do I want all those grunts there? Well, the control Q key splits it in half. Maybe some more. Split it in half again.
Aircraft spotted.
Want to build anti-air? Well, I can't do that out there. But Q is select all on the screen, and then Control Q splits those units off into different groups. So you wanted to send a few units over here. I do this a lot. And now suddenly you've already, or even behind the lines. If you select them, you see they've already got those commands issued. There's also the fight command, which is useful for especially like artillery and all that. The fight command is much like attack move in StarCraft. The fight command will stop you once you're in range to attack, as opposed to the move command, which you will still fire while moving. But important to note the difference. Usually with frontline units, you want to use move commands, and backline units like artillery, fight commands are more popular. So the fight command can't be dragged in an area. You usually just have to drag it out like that. Doesn't matter which way it's facing, they'll turn around. Maybe it matters for vehicles. Anyway. Drawing and pings. Alright, this is a favorite one. Surprisingly little abused because, of course, people will start ignoring you, but if you hold it, it's tilde and then Q for default. You can draw on the map. Any point, any time. If you want to delete it, tilde, right click. But you want to be more specific. Middle click. Tilde plus middle click. And then, if you just don't drag, if you hold tilde, you click, double click. There you go. We're just going through all these. We're going to go into a little bit more of team stuff. That's up next. But, so there's your basic pings. All of that. Complaining to your team. One more thing is cameras and camera options. I've seen a few people get stuck here, but there are different camera modes. The overhead cam is default, and then the spring cam. There's also camera hotkeys, which we're not going to get into. But the spring cam gives you a little bit more flexibility in the fact. So in order to rotate the camera up and down, I'm holding control and moving the scroll wheel up and down. Without control, just zoom in and out. Control T, map overview. Maybe Jimmy will put these on the screen if we do any editing. I doubt it. If we get 1,000 likes on this video, maybe we'll edit one. Well, probably not, because that means people like it as it is. Either way.
Metal extractor
what was I saying? Oh yeah, control scroll brings you up and down. Scroll wheel, just straight up and down. Alt up and down is just like 10 times multiplier, so you want to go quickly. Control T for take a look at all that. Or just, you know, that's the hotkey. But if you're on the spring cam, and you got to be a little careful. I still struggle with it. Most people accidentally activate this one, but you can actually rotate the camera, which is nice for screenshots and all that. Speaking of, Control F7 is your hotkey for getting rid of the UI. But oh my god, what has happened to my camera? Well, Control F5 will bring you back, and I believe it is by default it's Control F2 will do that for you. So you got your repeat command, you got your drag and everything, you got the ability to ping. Oh yeah, idle constructors. Control tab will select usually the nearest idle constructor. It's not always perfect. Also, if you enable it, you got your idle constructors down here. So you can use that to determine what you want to build. Also, just the tab key in general will select your commander. So I've gotten out of the habit of hotkeying my commander. Now, there's... because I have the tab key. Okay, one last thing. I wasn't sure if I was going to cover it in this, but I think we should cover it. Autogroups. Autogroups can be enabled. And if you hold, it's much like control groups. If you hold the Alt key plus a number, you've got an auto group. And what that means is all units of that name will automatically be added to that control group. You notice my grunts are on 1? Say I wanted them on auto group 0 or 7. Now, beautifully, for many of you, especially if you're maybe a little lower APM, you can, these persist between games. So, my grunts will be, in the next game I play, if I choose to, they'll be on 1. I like to have my artillery on 2, so on and so forth. And that's why you see I already have control groups down there without seemingly touching anything. If you want to remove something, Control tilde is the key. So that one to the left of 1. Alright, we gotta get some of those anti-air bots here. Anyway. Hey, I was getting a little frisky. So, auto groups are something worth toying with. You gotta be careful not to rely too much on them. You can always just... So the game will automatically select only military units. It won't select your constructors unless you hold shift. So, you can just select from there. Something to point out. Alright. So, I do want to point out team games. Team games. I think we should actually jump into a team game. So, you can easily jump into a versus AI lobby. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here, add a couple, so that way we get the team game UI. But I'm going to go over just a few of the basics for team games. One, how to not make your team hate you. We already went over pings and such, which are obviously mostly for team games, so you can kind of use them to mark out places on the map if you'd like. As well. They're not entirely useless in early game for that. But, so, while we're loading, the team play section. Also, I want to point out something. Sometimes, before you jump into multiplayer, I recommend loading one game against the AI, as a lot of the time, players will struggle, like you'll have a very long load, or it might even end up crashing. Some people have that issue. So I recommend playing one game, not even necessarily playing, just loading one game against the AI before you play multiplayer. But anyways, so, team games. Choose your starting location. Now this map is usually used...
Your starting location.
I was getting to that, but it's getting to 8v8. Now notice, whatever faction you pick in the load screen is kind of irrelevant. You can switch it right here in the start. So starting locations on most maps consist of having at least 3 metal extractors nearby. So here you'd have... Sometimes higher level players will do this. They'll map it out or just ping them for you. But some maps will have a more backline location, which is used to be a little greedier, but usually you want to focus on getting units out there. So let's say I pick this. There you go. I like picking around the edges. Usually you can really focus on breaking through. Anyways, so once you pick your starting location, you can set up your build beforehand. And I did miss one thing that I want to go over as well on hotkeys, but we'll just start the game real quick. I'm not going to be playing it out. What I wanted to do was talk about the how to transfer resources and how that works in team games. So, all of the resources that you get go up here into your, if you have storage, you have more. Energy production facilities and constructors both give you a little bit of storage, but the obvious, you don't want to build too much storage early, even for energy, but maybe 1 or 2 energy storage, metal storage later on. But anyways, so in order to transfer resources to your entire team, you can just drag the slider down, and that will, if your team isn't full, and in this case you can actually see that my AI teammate named Human is full of metal, so I can't actually transfer it. But if I wanted to manually do it, up to however much they have in storage, and this is a lot of the time will happen with, I don't know, helping someone get, or if you have extra, or just in general, if you want to do it, all you have to do drag this slider on whichever teammate. You can scale up the UI. Oh yeah, and if you double tap it, you can beg as well on yours. I need unit support. So what's this icon? This is double click to share units. This is one of the most relevant ones in a very small scale of team games. So you can transfer. You don't get them back, by the way, unless they send them back. But you can transfer whatever you're currently selecting. I've seen people accidentally transfer your commander. Be careful. Whatever you're selecting to your teammates. Now, this is mostly used for Tier 2 Constructors. Tier 2 Constructors, which give you access to Tier 2 Metal Extractors, which are 4 times as good as Tier 1. Now, another, I'm just going to this is a side note, not really a quick tip, but Tier 2 is incredibly expensive. In order to get, I'm going to enable cheats here, so I can just get up the tech tree. But going Tier 2 too quickly is the easiest way to well, one, and you can put these in all your AI games, these commands as well. No cost. Build a constructor. It still takes a moment. But it is 2,900 metal. So most of the time, in order to rush Tier 2, players will self-destruct their own commander, and they will reclaim it in order to gain that much metal. Another time, usually if you're not doing a quick tech build, then you usually won't be looking for Tier 2 units, not necessarily a constructor, until like 10 minutes. Ideally, you have maybe a reclaim field. That wasn't the Tier 2, but here it is. No cost means instant build as well. But make sure, as long as you can consistently produce units and your opponents don't have Tier 2, if you're at least at the halfway mark, you probably want to focus on just building Tier 1, or maybe even adding in, if you opened up bots, vehicles with like artillery tanks, or if you opened up vehicles, adding in some bots in order to fill things in. Because building another Tier 1 production facility is very much cheaper than going Tier 2. So just keep that in mind. There is no hard and fast rule for going Tier 2 unless you're doing a tech build, which I would not recommend for new players. But I just want to point that out. So you've got your begging, which I wouldn't do too much of unless you really need it. You've got your unit transfer, your resource transfer. And here's your bonus tip, your build grid. People know about shift-click buildings. But Shift-Alt allows you to build boxes. Very much used, especially for things like wind turbines. Now, if you build things too close together, they can sometimes chain react and explode. The same is true. Very much true with wind turbines. If you have 3 close together, well, let me get. I accidentally built a little camera there. So, if you have too many wind turbines close together. All right, we're going to get even more complicated. If you hold Shift, Alt, and Space, they will divide the tasks up between each other. Throw a few fighters. Oh my god. And each build in the most, well, at least they'll split the task, which is a lot more relevant with the ground constructors as opposed to air. Air constructors are less powerful, though they can fly. They're more expensive as well, so they're used for those hard-to-reach places and for later on when walking around is difficult. But let's see. I'm going to self-destruct. Control B. Okay, bad example. It has to hit one of the center ones. But a lot of buildings do damage when they explode. Okay, these are all bad examples. Jimmy, we didn't test this beforehand. Maybe you have to kill 2. I don't know. I know I'm right, but I'm not sure. Yeah, there you go. If 2 of them die, well, that's what happens. Please stop. All right. But in order to spread out the grid, you can just simply hit Z, which adds space, or X. So, one space between wind turbines is usually enough to prevent that sort of chain reaction. Different buildings have different things, but that's how you kind of spread them out naturally. So there's your bonus tip, is the build grids. Don't get too carried away, but you know what? Give it a shot. All right, and one last thing. How do I actually find a game, Mr. Winter? Well, I don't have that issue because I am a D-list E-celebrity. So most of the time I can find some people to play. But how many people are actually playing? I'm recording this at, I don't want to admit, but it's not, oh, but it is technically on the screen. But which 7 p.m. is it? Yeah. Anyways, so, fun fact. This is actually something really cool. I can stay in this game against the AI. And now we're going on, I want to play. How do I play? So, a multiplayer battle list. Also, you can go on the Discord as well. Look for games, find some things, ask for... So, there's a general... Here on the current version of the lobby list, which changes a lot. Games in green have players, but have not started. Games in yellow have started. There's a few of them. And in blue are open servers, or servers that no longer have players in them that players have started. So, you can see some of them have been changed by players and their names and such. So you can choose to wait for another game to roll around, but here's something you can do. Say you find a lobby like Noob Town. Now, I wouldn't necessarily trust all the lobbies to be only noobs, but usually players are under rank 20 or so. So, let's see. Let's just jump into this lobby. Game is in progress for 24 minutes. That's a pretty long time. Let's join the next one. I can't join right now, but I can add myself to the queue. There you go. So, now I'm just going to do exclamation point notify. So, I can go back to my game, and it'll notify me when that game ends, and it's very likely that there will be a slot for me when that ends. I gotta actually leave because I'm not gonna play that game. And then they're gonna be... Nope. Ah! It actually just did. Okay. Well, that is my favorite method for when I'm just chilling. I want to play against AI. Or, because it's a little easier to jump into one of those lobbies that's already rolling than start a new one. But, of course, just ask around and you can find some more info. So hopefully, I didn't even touch on the gameplay. I didn't touch on anything, but those are all the settings, the hotkeys, commands, the basic controls and UI that I like to... Oh, I said bonus tip. I keep saying bonus tip, but if you keep the metal view on, which shows you the metal, it's F7 on grid.
The whole team is wasting
I like it more. It's a little harder to tell what's out of vision range, but you should pretty much always have radar. And it kind of lights up the map a bit. So, I kind of like leaving the metal view on. And on top of that, it clearly shows you which metal is not taken in, which is very important to take. So, try it out, give it a shot, see how you like it, leave a comment. Thank you for watching. I hope this was educational, entertaining, somewhere in between. That's what I'm going for. Let me know the tips I definitely missed, what guides you want to see, and thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Really appreciate it. If you're watching this and you thought you were subscribed and it was actually to the main channel for StarCraft and not this channel, well, you made it to the end, so you probably enjoyed it. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Good luck. Have fun. Stay chill. Stay unreasonable.
You're overflowing.